we're back. I am joining Glenn Highcove all the way from California. I mean, the weather is amazing here, dude. How are you doing?
Hey, how do you like it here?
Uh,
Isn't it nice?
yeah, I mean, it's amazing,
It's not
bro.
full of ice and snow and stuff. You
Exactly, man.
could go outside. It's like it was in like the 70s today.
Exactly, man. I mean, the trip was quite bumpy in the shipping containers and things like that, but I made it out here. Now let's jump into today's case. Today we have a really interesting case. I mean, we're going back to a case that we did, I believe, back in episode 7. I hope it was 7. So yeah, I mean, without any further ado, man, you got like a little premise for us before we jump into this week's episode.
Yeah, and it's funny because somebody might ask us like, "Hey, why are you guys covering stuff that you've covered before?" Two good reasons. One is it was a long time ago, and you and I just barely knew each other at that point, and our show was way different, and we've come a long way. And B, because we get a lot of good feedback from users and people are really interested. And I think it's funny, like we almost did some of the best cases early on. And I think if you're ever going to make your own show, sometimes it's a little bit of a mistake to do too much of the good stuff up front, because then you're really tempted to go back to it, again and do it right. And I think this is one of those cases where, our show is going to be a lot more structured. I think the other thing is this kind of case. So like when you think about this topic, about whether it's, kind of the true crime and unsolved mysteries category. Well, true crime is one thing. You say like, well, what makes somebody do something really horrible? We've covered cases like that where, it's just something infamous happens and you kind of just even wonder, first you're exploring why it happened and what happened. But here's the other thing. I think the other thing that really disturbs people, it's always been fascinating to me, are these kind of unexplained disappearances. So I think it's often maybe the most disturbing, even more disturbing than when you find someone dead, is when someone disappears and you never find them. Like they disappear without a trace. There doesn't seem to be any reason behind it. You can't even really give like a good explanation. I think those are the worst, where it's like, oh, this person ran away, or that, what I mean? Like it's not even like Jimmy Hoffa or something where it's like, well, he was in trouble with the mob, so maybe something was going to happen. No,
Yeah.
like some of the worst ones are when it's people they're like really good people living really good lives, and sometimes they have things going on in their lives, but really nothing that would make you suddenly disappear. And I think what's the most disturbing is when these people seemingly disappear in thin air. And I think it touches us on a couple different levels. It touches us because we fear for ourselves, like just from that, looking out for me, looking out for number one, like you would never want that to happen to yourself. And you always wonder like, what do I need to look out for? But then you also worry about, the people that you love or the people in your life. And you think, well, what if that happened to like my mother or my brother or my girlfriend or my boyfriend or my wife or my husband, etc., my child? I mean, that would be heartbreaking. As we'll see, it's torturous for the people who are left behind. And I think, it really comes down to what was the fate of these people? I mean, just to give a quote from a user from our last episode, with Chris Kremers and Lisa Ann Froon, one of our users just had the perfect comment where they're like, gosh, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for like those 3 days, just to understand what the heck happened to these two people. I mean, in that case, at least they know that they died, so there's a little bit of resolution. But for the person we're going to talk about today, I mean, this is super disturbing because it's so mysterious. And, the disappearance has been so total.
Exactly, man. Today we're talking about the disappearance of Brian Shaffer. I have a whole bunch of little details that I want to go through today. So if this episode seems a little rushed, well, then pardon me, guys, because I definitely want to get everything in here. I've listened to a few podcasts. I've read a few articles, and I have a whole bunch of details this week, like definitely more than on our regular episodes. So I definitely don't assume that this will continue on. I just, for some reason, this Brian Shaffer case, like I just was really interested in it, and I have a whole bunch of information. I just want to put it all out here. So for however long we're gonna be recording today, like an hour and 20 minutes, somewhere around that time frame. Hopefully, I hope to fit everything in. So yeah, let's begin. So I'll just quickly give a really quick story, and I'll immediately jump to the details, and then obviously at the end we'll give our takes on it. I sort of have a strong feeling about this case in whichever way I'm leaning towards it. So yeah, let's do it. Brian Shaffer was a medical student at Ohio State University, and on the night of March 31st, so right before April 1st, so before April Fool's Day. It seems like a lot of these cases that we're talking about are happening on like April Fools. I feel like it's a whole bunch of like potential jokes that go bad. Shaffer went out with friends to celebrate the beginning of spring break. Later he was separated from them, and they assumed he had gone home. However, a security camera near the entrance of the bar that he was at recorded him briefly talking to two young women just before 2 a.m. I believe at 2 a.m. the bar actually closes. So, minutes before the bar closes. And pretty much, apparently in this video, well, we will be showing this video on our visual assets here on the Solvable Mysteries Podcast YouTube page. Shaffer has not been seen or heard from since. Like on that video, he is shown to like sort of be walking back into the bar. No one really knows if he went back into the bar. His friends sort of stated that they saw him going inside of the bar. I mean, all of these details are coming up shortly, and pretty much the case has received national media attention, because obviously this dude goes inside of a bar, and there's security footage pretty much showing him going inside of the bar, and some people are saying that they saw him going back inside of that bar at 2 a.m. but he never comes out, and there's like security cameras all over the place. Columbus, Ohio has like the most security cameras in Ohio, like at least more than the second most, like 3x like more. So there's a whole bunch of security cameras. No one's actually sees him walk outside of that bar, so it's like he went in there and he disappeared. He never went out of that bar, you know what I'm saying? So that's definitely an interesting premise here and there. Let's jump into the details. So I mean, I'll definitely go through the details quite rapidly, then I'll ask for your take on what's going on here. So I have one of the reasons why I think this case is super interesting to me is because this is a complete disappearance. Like, there's absolutely zero clues what could have happened to Brian. Like, literally, we got nothing. No DNA evidence. He hasn't been heard from. But there's a whole bunch of details. So before we go into the actual events, let's talk a little bit about who Brian was, because some of our audience may have never heard about this case. So Brian was 6'2", smart-looking guy. He seemed to be well-liked by everyone. You have it here. Is this the male version of Missing Pretty Woman? So basically, yeah, you want to chime in a little?
That's a big criticism. So I mean, I'll be fair. A lot of times people say that, sometimes we've addressed this before. Sometimes it feels like there's an inordinate amount of attention that's paid to, let's say, attractive Caucasian women or children that go missing, when there are, of course, many missing people of all genders and ethnicities, and around the world and in this country especially. And I couldn't help but say, this. I mean, the guy is super good looking, and I kind of tongue in cheek said, "Oh, is this like the same thing as like
Cindy James for sale?" Yeah, I definitely see.
Or there's a couple others like that. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, oh,
or like the last case that we did. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, like, well, of course, like someone might go missing in like a really impoverished part of the United States or the world, and no one seems to really care. And there's some reasons
Yeah,
back and forth about that. But yeah, I mean, somebody might argue this is like the male version of that. You don't see that happen that often, but I mean, this
exactly.
dude is like super tall, super handsome, and like a medical student.
Right.
He's sort of a winner in three or four different ways, and
Right.
of course everyone's looking for him.
Exactly. I also have that he grew up in Pickerington, Ohio, basically a small suburb in Columbus. He is the older of Randy's and Renee's Schaefer's two sons. He had a son called Derek Schaefer. He's pretty much the last surviving member of the family right now because pretty much every single Schaefer from this family is dead at this point, besides Derek. And Derek doesn't really want to talk about anything related to his family. I think it's understandable, but it will play into one of our theories later on. He graduated from the local high school in 97, went to OSU for his undergraduate work. 6 years later, he graduated with a degree in microbiology. Following that, he began studies at Ohio State University College of Medicine in '04. Had become romantically involved with a fellow second-year medical student, Alexis Wagoner. Alexis, along with their families and friends, believed that Brian would probably be proposing marriage to her later that year, most likely on a trip to Miami that they unfortunately never went on. Yeah, but this trip was actually planned for spring break at the beginning of April. Well, he goes missing on April 1st, pretty much. So yeah, he never makes that trip, unfortunately. I think you have a little point there regarding his statements, right? Technical difficulties, just filling time in with my own audio.
Well, yeah. So I guess part of it was we have to get to the part about his mother. So to me, it culminates in a couple things. Um, Unfortunately, you know, for all the good things he had going in his life, like a good relationship with a very attractive woman, um, you know, already had a undergrad degree under his belt, working on the medical degree, kind of has his future set ahead of him. But then he also has this pull of like, like that's one track for your life, and it almost feels like your decisions have been made for you, and then all of a sudden there might be this other thing and not even anything like that controversial, just that, hey, I would like to maybe go live in Miami and do music, because he was really into playing music, which if there's not a lot of time for both, right? If you're going to be a medical student or a doctor,
Wait, he was gonna
you're going to
try to live in Miami?
yeah, he was really interested in tropical locations. So,
Oh
he's
yeah,
living in the middle of Ohio, and Miami, and tropical areas are very different weather. I can
yeah,
I can totally understand, um, wanting to a change of pace. But like, yeah, I mean, like this whole thing of like wanting to play music, like kind of like Jimmy Buffett style music. Like, you can't really do both, right? I mean, I guess maybe you could, but you wouldn't really do either very well. So it's kind of like an all or nothing proposition. If you're going to be a musician, you're going to you're going to put in the work, right? You're going to get the XP learning to play music, and you're going to starve a little bit. And like, I guess we'll go into this a little bit later, but yeah, so that's one thought. So here's my main point is, at the same time as all this is going on, there's like a lead in where his mother gets sick. His mother gets, I think, a form of cancer. Is that correct?
yeah,
And like he, I mean, you can see from the pictures where, like, she's standing next to him and she's like bald from like the chemo or the radiation therapy. I mean, it was like an extended, fighting for her life
yeah.
kind of battle with cancer. And I'll just go personal for a second without going too long, but I have had to deal with this when I was about his same age, with an in-law, so somebody from my wife's family who, I mean, it wasn't even old like his mother; it was someone who was younger than me, um, and it like wrecks you, but it also makes you really think about your life. So it kind of makes you realize that all bets are off because, you could something could happen at any point in your life. So, just kind of have this, for our listeners and our viewers, have this percolating in your head about what kind of thought process might be going on for somebody that has kind of seen his mother fight for her life and then lose that battle against cancer, and then he's got all these other pressures and, like, the road ahead of him. It's not like he's past the hard part, right? He's like going up a steep hill to go through medical school. He's already done a lot of hard stuff. I keep on wondering if some other path could look attractive at that point.
Exactly,
Food for
man.
thought.
Yeah. Definitely. So basically, his mother passed away, right? At the same, like 3 weeks before his disappearance. So I thought that was, that definitely an interconnected um thing right there. With his disappearance, I definitely think that it could have influenced his disappearance. We'll get into that when we talk about the theories. Now let's jump into the actual disappearance, man. So basically it's March 31st, right? So Friday classes at OSU actually ended for spring break the next week, right when Brian and his then girlfriend Alexis had that trip to Miami. I don't think they were supposed to live in Miami. I think it was just like a vacation trip, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to clarify that fact so that no one is comes at us in the comments section. Brian, and because he wasn't gonna finish his studies from Miami, he still had like 2 years left. Brian and Randy Shaffer, his father, actually celebrated the occasion by going out for a steak dinner together earlier that evening. Now, this is the first area that I want to sort of clarify. Apparently, that was not the case. That's just like what the mainstream has sort of projected onto this case. It apparently was the fact that Brian and his father Randy, and I think you won't know this fact right here, actually started like straying away, you know what I'm saying? And actually, in a really weird and messed up way, the passing of Brian's mother Renee actually helped their relationship because they became closer. Because before that, for a while, they were like sort of straying away. And apparently, this dinner date between Brian and his father at 9 p.m. on the same day that Brian went missing was apparently about whether or not they could still continue having a relationship or something like that. So it's definitely underreported. Randy,
What was that
yeah,
about? I mean, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
do you have any indication of what the tension was between them?
I didn't, but this is just what my research led to it, that this was an underreported fact. You know what I'm saying? That pretty much the thing is, Randy, Brian's father, he sort of was really defensive about like what could have happened to Brian. And Brian was actually drinking quite heavily on the night of his disappearance, and Randy was like sort of trying to evade that line of thinking that his son was drunk, and that's why that's when something bad could have happened to him. So I mean, Randy sort of wanted to portray a type of a scenario where it seemed like everything was really good in Brian's life, besides obviously his mother passing, and that he had no reason to run away, no reason to change his lifestyle, that he was enjoying himself, and that pretty much it was foul play. So that's what his father Randy is sort of pushing. So what I'm saying, I feel like he may have been the main reason why this sort of line of thinking was pushed. Well, we won't know that because he's dead, you know what I'm saying? But we'll get into it. Like, Randy is also dead, so pretty much we have Randy's dead, Brian's dead, or missing allegedly, Renee's dead, and Derek doesn't want to talk about it. That's why, pretty much we have a scarce amount of details, but I will get through hopefully everything that I have here. Randy, the father, actually noted that his son seemed exhausted from having pulled all-nighters earlier in the week, cramming for some important upcoming exams. He did not think Brian should go out with a friend, William Clint Florence. Now, this guy is gonna play a big role in this case. So basically, they were set to go out later that night as he planned to do, but actually, Randy then said that he didn't express his reservations to his son. So once again, we are going back to like Randy's flip floppy like statements a little bit. I'm not really sure how credible this guy is. Pretty much at 9 p.m., Brian met Florence at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, and we could just jump into the the angles that we have from like the street view, I guess. So basically, this is the Ugly Tuna Saloon. Let me just jump to something nicer. So yeah, pretty much this angle is pretty cool. So this bar right here, you know what I'm saying, it's the Ugly Tuna Saloon. It's supposed to be like a fish and chip, maybe something like that. Probably not, you know what I'm saying, bar. I don't know, it seemed like a pretty cool place, you know what I'm saying. Anything you want to mention about like the actual bar before we jump into what actually went inside?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it just looks like a fun little place, and they had music too, right?
Yeah, they had a live band. Man, I even have like the live band. I'm not really sure if we're gonna have all of these details in today, but yeah, let's just keep going, I guess. So, they meet at 9 p.m. at this bar that we can see from this image right now, and an hour later, or apparently like an hour later, somewhere around that time, they took a few shots in this Ugly Tuna Saloon at 9 p.m. They actually went out bar hopping, you know what I'm saying. So I'm just gonna jump to a map, pretty much maybe this map right here. So this is pretty much the just a map, you know what I'm saying, of when they went bar hopping. So there's this like big street right outside of that building that Ugly Tuna Saloon is in, and it pretty much leads all the way to the arena district. And they went bar hopping for a while, and actually Brian, still being fairly sober, at least at the beginning of the night, actually made a phone call to his girlfriend Alexis Wagoner, but she didn't pick up, so it went straight to voicemail. And there's this voicemail online, I couldn't find it, where he's pretty much just saying how he likes her and how he thinks she's amazing and can't wait to see her and things like that. So I mean, he did, you know what I'm saying, made that voicemail saying that he's looking forward to go out with like the girlfriend and things like that. So pretty much the girlfriend actually had returned to her home in Toledo, a nearby city in Ohio State, to visit her family before she and Brian were due to depart for Miami on Monday, I believe, but that never actually materialized. So basically, continuing on with the story of Brian Shaffer's disappearance, Brian and Florence goes bar hopping, visiting several other drinking establishments and working their way down to the arena district. After midnight, the two met a friend of Florence, so basically Clint Florence, called Meredith Reed. She actually gave them a ride back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, so they went all the way back from the arena district to the bar for pretty much last call or something like that. It really seemed pretty peculiar for me. Why are you going back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon? Because I will ask for your input right here. Pretty much, they went back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, I believe, at 1:45 a.m. Pardon me, guys, that is definitely not correct. They actually went back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon at 1:15 a.m., not 1:45 a.m. So basically 45 minutes before the Ugly Tuna Saloon closes. And the bar closes at 2 a.m. So does that make a whole bunch of sense to you, dude, that they go back?
Nah.
Before 45 minutes before the bar closes? I mean, I will say, before you chime in, I will say that there was a band playing. The band was called Rock House. So it's a band. I think they're like a proper D-listers or something like that, you know what I'm saying? So they're like somewhat known. Did they go there to listen to the band potentially? I don't know, man. Like, what is your take?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the bartender is going to cut you off because here, I mean, I don't know how it is other places, but here in the States, unless you're like a after hours club or someplace, that's not kind of like an official obvious business in like a strip mall or mini mall, like this place is, like they're gonna cut you off, right? They're not gonna. They know they gotta shut down at 2, so they're not
Exactly.
really gonna. I mean, maybe they'll give you a coffee or something, but yeah. And then I mean, what kind of music are they even playing at like 1:30 or whatever? You know what I mean? Like where
Yeah.
are they even still playing? I feel like at that point, the band's like wrapping it up and maybe trying to get a drink real quick before they have to go.
Exactly. Well, before we go any further, I just want to play this little clip. I sort of like took it from one of the news stations because it's the only place I found of the actual footage. So I'm just gonna play it real quick. Let me just play it real quick. I'll just try to increase the audio. I'm playing it right now. It's pretty much just a surveillance footage of Brian, Meredith, and Clint entering the Ugly Tuna Saloon again, and then pretty much it shows how Brian, on the last piece of footage that we see, is pretty much going back into the direction of the Ugly Tuna Saloon, but it's still unclear if he went inside of the bar. More on that later, so I'm just gonna play it right now.
Surveillance tape shows them at 1:15 a.m. coming up the escalator to the bar. That's Brian leaning on the handrail. Once inside, they ran into a couple of young women Clint knew.
Brian made his final appearance on the video. He was outside the bar chatting with the young women. Then he walked out of frame and disappeared. Police say it appears he went back into the bar. One part of the mystery is how Brian left the building without being caught on tape. Both bar exits are covered by cameras, as is the escalator that leads to the street.
Surveillance tape shows them at 1.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the general premise. I'm gonna just leave it playing here for now. Yeah, so we can talk over it. I hope you can see the surveillance, right, man?
Yeah.
Cool, man, cool. So yeah, so pretty much they go back, just as I've said in the beginning. Brian goes inside of the bar, but he never comes out, you know what I'm saying? So pretty much everyone who left was accounted for. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about what went down next. So, I have this end of the night scenario, end of the night events. I would say that this is not anywhere online. I will tell you that right now. There isn't like a clear cut explanation or like scenario of how the night actually ended for the trio. Because if the Wikipedia doesn't have it, like pretty much no one has it, because pretty much everyone sort of cuts off the details right at, as we can see from this footage. Pretty much everyone who's listening to this podcast, not on our YouTube channel, I suggest you go there and you take a quick look. So you can see Brian is right now, this is 1:15 a.m., right? So right when Meredith gave them a ride back. Now look at the bottom right corner. You can see Brian right there. So this is the last footage of him. Brian looks around and then he goes back into the direction of the bar. Now this is where the information cuts off on all of the sources, but this is what I sort of managed to piece together. So hear me out real quick. Once Brian comes back into the bar, so after talking to the two girls that gave him their phone number seen on CCTV, this is another interesting detail. Everyone's thinking that he's about to propose to Alexis, the upcoming week in that Miami vacation, but he's out here talking to chicks. Apparently he was kissing one of their neck. So that's something right there. That's definitely an interesting little detail. I don't know what that was all about, And he called his girlfriend and said that he liked her a lot, and that, he's glad that he's with her and he can't wait to see her. But hours later, he's already like getting phone numbers from chicks. So that's something, let's...
I got some theories about that.
Yeah, yeah. But before you do, bro, Clint is basically this is Clint's statement. Clint Florence, the friend of Brian that Brian started the day with. Clint says that he saw Brian re-entering the bar, then lost track of him, And before you know it, it was time to leave. Brian apparently said to Clint and Meredith, "I'm going to talk to the band." Now, it's unclear if that's what he said. They may have misheard him. Meredith and Clint go outside as everyone starts to leave the bar. They start looking for Brian. Then Meredith calls Brian's cell phone, and no one picks up. And then on Monday, I believe, he misses the flight to Miami. That's when the whole investigation ensues. We can jump to the investigation now. Before we do, you wanna chime in regarding the situation with the two ladies that he was chatting with before he disappeared?
Yeah, I mean, to me, a couple of things. So, like that, plus the phone call to the girlfriend, which I think at the end I'll argue was a sign of a couple of things, and maybe him trying a little too hard, or trying to make, almost like trying to cover his bases too much. You'll see what I mean by that, and then everybody knowing he's going to propose. Like, why does and like I said, there's a whole confluence of things where a lot of people seem to be very invested in his life, and meanwhile, like I said, he'd taken his mother's death really badly, and I'll recap that at the end. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'll say right now that phone call, given that he'd been going out with the girlfriend for a while, that phone call to the girlfriend where he's like saying all that stuff, it doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? Something smells wrong about that. So
Okay, so police began their search for Brian at Ugly Tuna Saloon, the bar where he last been seen. Since the area around South Columbus Gateway, so basically the building complex that we can pretty much see right now on this image, it was somewhat blighted with a high crime rate. So that's interesting. The bar had installed security cameras all over the place. They reviewed the footage, which showed Brian, Florence, and Reed going up the escalator to the bar's main entrance at 1:15 a.m. Brian was outside of the bar around 1:55 a.m. So that footage where we are, Brian's last seen going towards the direction of the bar again, it was like literally 5 minutes before the bar closes, and apparently he went to talk to the band or whatever. The camera did not record him leaving shortly afterwards when the Ugly Tuna closed. That was the last time he was seen. How the police knows that? Because they apparently did a really comprehensive work, pretty much accounting for everyone who went inside of the bar, and they pretty much like made note of everyone who left the bar. It was so comprehensive that they actually had the guy who went into the bar with like a sweater and went outside of the bar with like a shirt. And they sort of tracked him down, and he was questioned. So from that, I'm getting that they really did good work, and pretty much the cameras really don't show him go out. It was, however, possible that investigators realized that he could have changed his clothes in the bar as well, or put on a hat and kept his head down, hiding his face from the camera, because apparently, if anyone in the comment section has some information regarding this, then definitely leave that in the comment section, because from what I've gathered, the police actually had a whole bunch of people that they could not identify, but they were 100% certain that it was not Brian. So I don't know how that works. I'm saying, if you can't identify someone from a really crappy 2006 CCTV footage, that could be Brian, at least in my opinion, and I think that will play out a little bit in the theories. I also have that Columbus has the most security cameras of any city in Ohio, more than Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Toledo combined. Officers next looked at the footage from the other bars to see if cameras there could explain how Brian had left the Ugly Tuna. However, footage from the cameras at 3 other nearby bars showed no trace of Brian. So as we can see, like, obviously this is from a more recent time, but just in general, like, I would say the general structure of the building stayed the same. We can see that there's a whole bunch of like other establishments around this area, and I don't really know how many security cameras were here in 2006, but I'm gauging that I will say a lot. And yeah, I mean, we'll get into all of that shortly. I also have information that the search began to fan out from the ugly tuna because there was no useful information uncovered. Actually, at Brian's apartment on Kings Avenue, 6 blocks from the ugly tuna, his car was still parked outside, and inside of the apartment, nothing appeared amiss. We also have some information that since his mother had recently died, it was speculated that he had gone away temporarily to grieve in solitude. Those who had seen Brian that evening, including his father, were asked to take lie detector tests. Reed and Randy Shaffer passed theirs, as did reportedly all the other people that had a significant contact with Brian that evening, besides Clint. So this will play a part. Like the initial friend, Clint Florence, did not take the lie detector test. Now, I will, in his defense, because that's really shady, but in his defense, I actually did like some last minute research, and apparently Clint actually was really cooperative with the police and things like that, but apparently his father, family members, as well as Alexis Wagoner, Brian's girlfriend, they sort of started accusing Clint of knowing more information that he had publicly disclosed, or at least, in private to the police. And apparently that's when he got a lawyer, because he sort of sensed that the family might start accusing him of knowing about Brian's whereabouts or what had happened to him. So I'm not really gonna go really hard on Clint here, even though I was sort of planning to. It seemed that Clint was really cooperative, and you could actually see interviews from like Clint right after the disappearance. He seemed like he was really trying to help, but Randy Shaffer started really putting that pressure on him, and he sort of thought that I'm not with this case anymore. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so pretty much we also have that the two girls that Brian had last been seen talking to were actually identified, and they said in 2009 that they had never been asked to take lie detector tests. So I'm not really sure. This is like a conflicted statements. Police says everyone took it. The girls say they didn't take it. Yeah, but I would probably argue that the girls, wouldn't you agree, man? Like the girls would probably be the ones that you really need to like question hard, you know what I'm saying? Because like they're literally the ones that are seen on the footage talking to Brian last.
Yeah, I mean they were the ones the most intimate with him the most recently before he took off somewhere. So yeah, makes you wonder what other scenarios could happen there.
Exactly. We have that Alexis Wagoner, the girlfriend, had called Brian's phone every evening before going to bed for a long time after Brian's disappearance. Usually it went straight to voicemail, but one night in September it actually rang 3 times. This is her quote: "I kept calling it to hear it, purely because it was one of the best sounds I have ever heard, even if no one picked up." She wrote on her MySpace page. So this is definitely this is back in the day. Singular, Brian's wireless provider, said that Alexis heard a glitch due to a computer error. A ping from the phone was detected at a cell tower in Hilliard, so basically 14 miles northwest of Columbus. And yeah, I'll definitely write this off as a glitch in the system. I don't want to spend too much time here because I thought everyone mentions this detail, but it literally doesn't tell us anything, so I just want to move away from it. Yeah, you do agree, I assume,
yeah,
right?
I'm in the same. Yeah, when I was reviewing that this week again, and I was like, you know what? Especially with the cell phones, yeah. I mean, it just literally something could have changed in the operating system, or whatever system they have managing that. It could be a glitch. It could have been interpreted different ways. Honestly, I think she called it so much it pissed it off. The computer's like, dude, stop. Like there's no one here. That account's gone. Stop crank calling me.
Exactly, man. Also have that police over the years had received many tips, none of which resulted in any breakthroughs in the case. At a Pearl Jam concert, because let's remember he was a big fan of the band called Pearl Jam, and pretty much this band's lead singer Eddie Vedder took time between songs to ask for tips in Brian's disappearance. However, none of those were useful either. Possible sightings in Michigan, Texas, and even Sweden were investigated. I did look into it a little bit. All of them pretty much not legitimate, you know what I'm saying? None of them were legit. Randy and Derek Shaffer, so pretty much at that point the only remaining people alive in the Shaffer family, along with some other citizens who had become interested in the case, brought waders and spent much of their free time along the shores of the Olentangy River, which flows through Columbus, adjacent to the OSU campus, the one that Brian was attending. Their searches went down in Wayne for the body because they couldn't find anything. There was speculation that Brian's disappearance was connected to the Smiley Face murder theory. Brian Shaffer, under this theory, would be the killer's only victim whose body had not yet been found. Columbus police eventually rejected any connection to the alleged killer in Brian's case, following the lead of most law enforcement agencies, including the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI. Pretty much, they all looked into it. They said this was not the Smiley Face killers, and I just want to nip this one in the bud real quick. I don't even think that there is a Smiley Face killer. It's some really crazy theory because a bunch of like male white college students, you know what I'm saying, over the years in America that has like a population of over 300 million at this point, had drowned in like rivers, and their bodies were found next to, not necessarily next to, but like in the general vicinity where there was like a piece of graffiti, and the graffiti was like a smiley face. So the theory goes that there's a bunch of like killers in America that kidnap white males from like college campuses. They kill them, or like they drown them forcefully in like rivers. They leave their bodies in the rivers, and then they tag a street wall with like a smiley face nearby. But I just looked into that theory. I just want to nip it in the bud. I don't think it's a real theory, so I don't really want to spend too much time on it unless you have something on the smiley face killers.
No, dude, I'm right with you. I mean, like, I think the more obvious explanation is people like to party and drink, and rivers are one of the most dangerous kinds of waterways around. I would say, arguably even more so than the ocean sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like as far as smiley faces all over the place, yeah, because it's like the easiest thing to do with a can of spray paint is to make a smiley face. That's like the first tag you learn how to do, or the first drawing you learn how to do as a kid. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and kids are not killing students, you know what I'm saying?
No. And framing them up, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into the next interesting detail, and really unfortunate detail, I would have to say. So in September 2008, during a heavy windstorm in central Ohio, Randy Shaffer, the father of Brian, who went missing just 2 years earlier, was out in the yard of his Baltimore home clearing debris. A branch blew off from a nearby tree and fatally struck him. Neighbors found his body the next morning and called the police. Don't you think that's super, like, don't you think that this family is cursed? Like, literally everyone is dying.
Yeah, man. I mean, so I guess I'm not surprised. That's a good reason to look at Ohio. You got all this weather, you got snow and ice on the branches breaking stuff off. But yeah, I mean, I've almost had trees hit me all the time, so
God
I'm
damn.
not totally surprised. Yeah, it's been a couple times in my life where I've almost got clobbered by a big branch. So
God
yeah, it
damn.
happens, right? I know.
Right. Yeah, so pretty much we also have some information regarding how Clint was flip-flopping. Now, I will say these details that I have lying down, like I did them before I actually looked into that. Clint was actually he was pretty much cooperating with the police quite a bit, so I'm definitely not gonna cast any shade on Clint, and I don't want to go through these details. I will say that in 2014, the Columbus police said that they were still receiving at least 2 tips a month on the case via the local Crime Stoppers hotline, though none of these tips had proven useful. The evidence in this case filled 4 boxes of files, so there's a bunch of evidence right there. We also have one of the original investigators, Andre Edwards, told Columbus Monthly that after extensive review of the camera footage at the Ugly Tuna from the night Brian disappeared, which was intended to rule out the idea that Brian could have left in disguise, his quote is, "I can say with 100% certainty that Brian did not leave via the escalator." So, you know what I'm saying? I think that's pretty credible. I think if a dude is that certain that, he didn't leave via the elevator. I mean, I didn't see the footage, so I just have to follow along. But apparently there were other routes to leave the building, and this is where we jump into the other points that I have sort of marked last night, because I sort of went on a binge of podcasts and some articles regarding this case, and let's break it down real quick. There are apparently other areas to leave the Ugly Tuna Saloon without having to go down the elevator. Now, first, one of these would be the back door entrance, right? There in this barn, the Ugly Tuna Saloon, we actually have a back door entrance that is sort of just there for the staff, as well as the performers, the band, and apparently Brian could have just left from the back doors. Now, the back doors, to enter them, you have to walk a really small, really short hallway, and actually there's a camera on that hallway, and police had not released the footage from that hallway, but it says they pretty much stated that they know for a fact that Brian did not go that hallway. So we pretty much have to say that Brian also didn't use the back door entrance as well, because the police says we saw literally everyone leave the back doors normally. We saw the band, the staff, but Brian was not there. So either Brian, in my eyes, there are 3 possible scenarios. Well, maybe 4. So I will let you chime in real quick. Either Brian, only 4 possible ways that Brian could have left the Ugly Tuna Saloon and the building. So the first would be that Brian actually somehow manages to pass the security footage and just go outside of the building, down the escalators, the same, pathway that sort of that investigator denied happening. And I will say I sort of find credibility in that particular theory, just because of the fact that police had said that they have people on this footage they can't identify, but they know for a fact it was not Brian. Let's jump real quickly to the footage of the event, of his pretty much disappearance. Now, this is the quality. Dude, you're looking at the quality right now. Do you think you could sort of say for certainty that someone was not Brian here? Let's imagine 50 people walking down those stairs almost at the same time, because, when last call hits in a bar, pretty much everyone walks out at the same time. Do you really think that this quality of footage you could 100% rule out that Brian was not captured on this footage? What do you think about it, man?
Nah, I mean, look, that's like a potato cam, right? It's not
Exactly.
super clear. You got people that paid cash probably that night, so it's not like you can trace everybody by receipts and track every single. And did they even really you know what I mean? Did they really ever track down every single person? I mean, that's an expensive investigation.
Apparently they did, but they had people that they could not identify, but it's definitely not Brian. So
Okay.
I don't know how that
Yeah.
works,
I
man.
mean, yeah. I mean, just think what era that is too. It's not like everybody had like 1080 HD cameras back then.
Exactly.
Even now, most people don't have that. So
Exactly. Just to not lose the point that I was making. So this was the first way that Brian could have left. The other would be that back door, staff entrance. But as I've said, that entrance is always filmed by a camera, and the camera, at least the police states that Brian was not captured on it. So I will believe the police definitely that Brian was not there. The other area is apparently there is. Now I could be mistaken here, so definitely don't take my word for it. Do your own research. I'm talking to the audience right now. There is supposed to be like a fire exit, something along those lines, like a third exit outside of that bar, pretty much. And apparently, if you try to leave through that fire exit, the alarm will sort of go off. But it was common knowledge to the regulars of the Ugly Tuna Saloon that the alarm actually does not work. So there's some speculation that Brian actually could have known this fact. No, Brian was not a local of the Ugly Tuna Saloon, I know that. But, he was drunk and he could, probably he didn't even care at that point about no alarms going off. He may actually went outside through there. Now, I will say that the information that I have here regarding that fire exit is really shaky, so definitely don't take my word for it. And the last place is the roof. You know what I'm saying? Like the roof. We have to focus on the roof, because I think he had to be on the roof. I believe the Ugly Tuna Saloon had like a patio area, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know, man. That seems like a legitimate way to get outside of the building, pretty much. So just to sum it up, I will say that I do believe that Brian actually left the building. I definitely don't think, just before we jump into the theories and the other details that I have, I definitely don't believe that Brian was killed inside of the building and sort of it was a cover-up. I don't see it happening, you know what I'm saying? There are some theories that he went outside and he got like stuck in like a construction site or something like that. Now, I do have some information that the construction site nearby was actually pretty small, a small construction site without any like massive holes where Brian could like just fall into, and the construction workers then would come in the next morning, oh crap, we have a dead guy. And the first thing that the constructions do is obviously, let's cover up the dead guy. You know what I'm saying? We just found a dead guy at our construction site, let's definitely cover it up. So I definitely don't think that was the case. I mean, I don't know, man. You have anything on that?
Nah, I mean, it made that reasoning makes sense for some other stuff, but I don't know. I mean, it feels like,
why cover up? Why cover up an accident?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
I mean, unless you're missing permits or something, or it's like a mobbed up construction site where they don't want too much attention. I can't think of why they would do that in this case.
Exactly.
Given all the attention.
I mean, there is a line of thinking that people go back to, that maybe the construction workers missed him and they sort of constructed over him. But as I've said, the construction site was not that large. It's like, I don't know, man. If you're like construction workers, you're probably noticing like a dead dude, you know what I'm saying, somewhere in the corner at some point. So I definitely think he left the building. It's just a big mystery how he did it. I don't think we will ever know how he did it, but I think there are avenues how he could have done it. I will play this YouTube clip right now. I have some footage from a dude. We can just talk over him. Definitely link him in the credits. It's basically just a dude walking around filming the area in modern times, pretty much. So yeah, I definitely don't see how people are saying that Brian died inside of the building. I don't think that was the case. Also, some other points before we jump into the theories are that search dogs hinted at nearby Wendy's restaurant. Apparently, it was a fluke because they had like cadaver dogs searching around, and one of the dogs actually hinted at a nearby Wendy's restaurant, which is pretty interesting. But actually, the police officer said that it was a fluke, and also that Wendy's restaurant had its own security cameras, and it didn't show Brian anywhere near the Wendy's that night. So I will write that off as well. The area around the building was quite dangerous, actually, so that's one thing to note. Not super dangerous, but it was definitely not the safest place in the world. Also, I will say that, for all this talk about Columbus having the most security cameras in Ohio, all of that, there are actually no security cameras shortly after you leave the general area of the building. So, there is like this general premise that a security camera would definitely have captured him, but I definitely don't think that was the case. You have anything on the security cameras in the Columbus area?
Nah. I mean, it still seems spotty. I mean, and the quality, and then matching up everybody, and then even getting the footage. Like, who knows how long anybody keeps any of that footage?
Exactly. One of the other things definitely worth mentioning before we jump into the theories is that law enforcement strongly believes that Brian actually left the building. So I'm definitely gonna go with law enforcement. They had more information than me regarding this case, and I haven't uncovered anything crazy, so I'm definitely gonna go with the law enforcement. What I'm saying? I definitely believe he left the building. We also have some interesting details that Brian had to walk 6 blocks to get home, and it was around 3 a.m. So he could have been an easy target for a robbery, like a drunk, preppy looking guy, 3 a.m. stumbling around. I mean, I definitely see that happening. We also have 5. Oh yeah, this is the one we have to talk about. This is the one that I almost missed last night, and I just noted last minute. 5 weeks after Brian's disappearance, someone broke into his apartment and tried to steal stuff. And now police thinks it was an opportunist who heard that Brian is missing and knew the apartment was unoccupied. So basically 5 weeks, because some people are thinking that Brian himself returned, what I'm saying? But the locks on his apartment were not changed. So it wouldn't really make sense. Why would he have to break into his own apartment? Because he should have had his keys with him. Maybe he didn't, but I don't think that it was Brian.
I'll ring on that real quick. It's actually a known tactic by horrible human beings to look at people that are known missing or dead, and then to try to go raid their houses. There was a famous case where a lady who was married to a cancer patient, an older guy who was a cancer patient, he died, and these like horrible drug addicts came to her house, and she ended up having to blow them away with a shotgun. So it was like a famous like self-defense case, but they had come there because they knew that this guy would have like a supply of pain meds. So they were like, drug fiends looking into but like no joke, like she had to blow these guys away because they wouldn't go away, because they knew they literally looked in the paper and saw this guy die, and they're like, oh, he's going to have all sorts of like oxys or something in his house. So let's go there and raid his house. And so and they wouldn't take no for an answer, so they got the 12 gauge. Gotcha,
man. So I didn't know that. What I'm saying? I didn't know that. That's one thing I'm taking away from this case. That if I know that someone's missing, I'm definitely trying to install new door locks or something like that, because people will try to break into that. So I definitely agree with you. I think that was the case. Brian's uncle was part of the search, and this is an interesting fact. He said that Brian is not in the river. That's his quote, because they had extensive research. They searched the nearby water water areas, rivers, and so on. And like Brian's uncle is saying that he's not in the river. I mean, that's something to take away from his statement as well. Now, the other interesting fact here is that it will play into one of my crazy theories. Brian's brother Derek is distant from this case, and he doesn't want to talk to the media or any of the podcasters that try to have him on their own like platforms. And I think that's pretty normal. It's been like 14 years at this point. Like, I think Derek has moved away. Like, his whole family is dead, so I think he just moved away from that. The last thing here is a really peculiar thing I noted, that Brian paid his tab in cash at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, and now Randy, his father, says that Brian always paid in credit card and he never paid in cash. So I don't know what that means. You know what I'm saying? The dude paid in cash, even though he usually pays with credit cards. I don't know, man. Yeah. So pretty much. That's the everything I had. I'm happy that I pretty much got everything out. Now I think we could jump to the theories. I definitely will let you talk now. Sorry if I like occupied the show for like the last hour, but I just really had a lot of things to say. So yeah, I mean, your general take on the whole case, man. I'll let you talk right now. Sorry for that, man.
No, I mean, I wasn't. Don't worry, I wasn't. Wasn't itching to add it anymore because you were covering it so completely. So if I had to go in and just throw in my theory, and it's weird because this is like one of my favorite cases, and by favorite I don't mean I'm happy that something happened, but it's just super mysterious. It's always been like one of the top 5 or top 10 cases whenever you go to YouTube and look up the topic of missing people. So, I mean, I think it's funny how when you look at things, your opinion of things changes over time. I will go back to one of the more minor things, because someone might go and say, "Hey, you guys on the Michael Negrique case, you said it very well could have been construction. Like, how did this guy disappear?" And now you're turning around and you're saying, "Oh no, that could never happen." I want to clarify that, because I'm not saying that could never happen, and things like the Ben Needham case, that was like seemed almost certainly what had happened. In fact, there were some anecdotal things said that was like someone involved with it admitted that's what happened. I would say you have to look at like kind of the things going on with the person and some of the other circumstances. So I think, like, to your point, the construction site was smaller. It wasn't like UCLA with Michael Negrique where, there was just construction. I mean, I was there the year before, so I remember there was just construction everywhere. It was a mess. I mean, there were like, and it was like deep, like pillars 4 stories into the ground kind of construction. There was a lot going on, and like Michael Negrique had no reason to leave UCLA. I would argue that the more I look at this case, the more I think that Mr. Shaffer may have very well reached the end of his rope. And I don't mean like in a suicide way. I mean in like I want to go in a different direction with my life because I just saw my mother's life end, and maybe there's other stuff going on in my life besides what everybody knows about kind of way. So let's just recap this. Specifically, when his mother died, he was, I mean, not that anybody ever takes that well. I mean, that's probably one of the pivotal moments in your life, is losing one or both parents. But he was pretty close to his mom. It sounds like he didn't, he was late for her funeral. Both understandable. I don't know if you're expected to really be on time for your mom's funeral if you're taking it badly. But it kind of goes to show that, like, he's pretty shook up by it. And then he had said some things to his girlfriend that were interesting. At one point, he was like, "Hey, let's just both run off together for like a new life." And then he said, "Oh, you know what? You should go on without me, or you don't need to, I'm like."
second just step in here, because I just want to put the time frame into play here regarding what you just said. So pretty much 2 weeks, I believe, before he disappeared, he said, let's just run away. You know what I'm saying? Let's just get away. But then 2 days before his disappearance, he called her and he pretty much said something along those lines. Listen, Alexis, you should just move on, you know.
Yeah, I mean those are like big glaring arrows for me. So already he's acting really erratic. It's almost like he's trying to cut ties with the person. Now, someone will say, "Oh, but he called his girlfriend," and I guarantee you, dude, this is where we're going to get the most comments as far as angry. Besides that, and us shooting down the Smiley Face Killer, this is where people are going to get the most upset with me. Go ahead, let's hear it. So, look, how long was he in this relationship with Alexis at this point?
I think quite a bit of time, actually. Well, he met her in his studies. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really certain.
Yeah.
I would say somewhere maybe like a year, I would actually say.
Yeah, that's too long to be. I'm sorry, and someone's gonna get upset about this or say I'm not being romantic enough. That is too long to be making those kind of like lovey-dovey, romantic voicemails. I get he's had a couple drinks in him, and sometimes people get emotional when they have drinks in them, so I won't totally discount that. But to me, it almost looks like he was setting the stage, either because he was feeling guilty because then he's out, turns around and he's flirting with a couple of girls and trying to make out with them a little bit, or that's when you can be compensating. Oh, I really love you. But the other thing is that maybe it was almost trying to because my theory is leaning towards he planned this disappearance. He realized he had one of these midlife crises. Look, here's the thing. That age is not so far, especially given the extra stress he had. I mean, I saw it all the time in my life. Getting close to 30 is what I call kind of the quarter life crisis or third of a life crisis that people have. They used to consider the midlife crises, but I would argue people, especially men, have probably multiple kind of crisis moments in their lives, especially if there's other stuff going on like this. I would say when you look at someone lose their life like that, in your perception early, and mother certainly didn't live to be in a ripe old age. I think that's where you're what is going on in my life? What do I really want to do? Do I like what I'm doing? And he's also stressed, right? He just came off of a marathon session of studying for midterms or whatever. I just think this is one of those points where you could kind of resolve that you're going to go in a totally different direction. And here's another thing that I thought of when we were doing the prep for the show, actually off of a Dr. Grande thing, because Dr. Grande made the same observation I did in another show, that psychopathy often coincides with the medical profession. So I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but meaning that, for a surgeon to cut into somebody, they need to be able to kind of not have as much empathy and sometimes be very much to get something done, they need to almost be very into themselves or into whatever their goals are. And I would argue that someone that might make a good doctor, like Brian, might also make a good something else. That's why the special forces people also have high levels of psychopathy, etc. You're very goal directed, and to the point where maybe you can cut ties. Now, here's what I think is going on is, and maybe this is why his brother is not so anxious to bring the whole family together, and maybe this is why Brian has this weird relationship with his father. I don't know that everything was so happy and wonderful in his family. Maybe the mother was the only one holding it together. We don't really have his father to defend himself, but that whole thing, I mean, arguably someone dying of cancer is going to hurt the family dynamic. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stress around that. There's here in America, sad to say, even with health insurance, you're maybe going bankrupt. You're losing a lot of money. There's arguments about finances. There's a lot of recriminations. There's a lot of like bad stuff that comes up when someone's dying. Well, you never did this and you never did that, and people just kind of at at each other's throats about like the past, and a lot of bad stuff comes up, and I think that all comes to a head, and I really think that what, maybe he planned his own disappearance. Maybe this was something that he put in progress for a while. Maybe that's why his friend kind of clammed up after a while, if he knew anything about it. Now, here's the only part that I can't explain is if your like whole plan was to go rush off to someplace tropical, because they were going to go on vacation to someplace tropical, and from what I understand it's because he really liked those tropical places. If you wanted to go off and play music, well, you kind of have to show your face. So that's the part I can't explain, is you would think that he would pop up somewhere in like a cruise ship or a resort or South America or Central America, Belize, someplace where like, there's tourists, there's bands. Yeah.
Well, he did pop up. You know what I'm saying? Let me just quickly find an image for you. This was one of the theories. He did pop up. Dude, what do you think about this guy? This is a dude, I believe, in Mexico, Tijuana. So people are saying that this is Brian Shaffer. This is like 2020 information.
Wow.
So, but this is, okay, a little backstory. FBI did facial recognition, their little like high-tech stuff. They said this was not Brian Shaffer. Also don't believe this is Brian Shaffer, but I just thought that, I had it as one of the theories, and you said pop up somewhere in Mexico or whatever, and I was like, I have to put it in there. Dude, I definitely think you made an insanely nice case for him disappearing intentionally. Like, I never heard anyone put it like that nicely as you had. So, but just to save some time, like, I will get back to this theory. I also think it was, this was definitely a really nice way you put it. I just want to quickly jump through the other theories, and then I think we could just like make a decision at the end. What do we think happened here? I have that Brian attempted to leave the bar intoxicated and became trapped or died somewhere in the area. So we talked a little bit about the construction, that it was not that likely. We talked a little bit about how Brian's uncle stated for a fact that he was not in the water, water in the surrounding area. So definitely, I don't know how credible those statements are. We also have that police didn't find any blood, didn't find any DNA, anything like that. The cadaver dogs, he basically just vanished. So I think, I don't know if he died of an accident or anything else, but I definitely think he left the bar somehow. We have the Smiley Face Killers, which I believe we both already talked about, how, we're probably not going to be leaning that way. I mean, if anyone in the comment section has something regarding the Smiley Face Killer theory, please leave that in the comment section. We also have, this is a crazy one, that Clint Florence was involved in Brian's disappearance, and it had something to do with Meredith Reed, who, remember how she went to pick them up? I mean, why would she pick them up just to drive them to Ugly Tuna Saloon 45 minutes before it closes? I think it's, when you're drinking and it's like you're out drinking, maybe that makes sense, but when you're like sober, that doesn't really make sense. Meredith was actually probably sober because she was driving the car back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon. Now this theory goes, this is like my own personal theory, so sorry Meredith, but I have here that you could potentially supply them with drugs, and maybe Clint knew about some of these drugs, and that that's why he didn't want to take the lie detector test, because then, he didn't want like the information about the drugs coming out, because that would ruin his career and reputation. There's a theory on Reddit that goes something along those lines, that like the two women that he was last seen talking with, he pretty much tried to get them to go back to his house or something like that, because they're gonna do cocaine. So he went back inside of the bar to talk to the band or the staff so that they could hook him up with like coke. And then he pretty much the bar closed and he had to go like through like the back doorway somehow outside of the bar with the coke on him. Now the people who supplied him the cocaine probably later on just ended up mugging him and accidentally killing him. I mean, it's out on the Reddit, so that's why I said it. We also have, now this is the really crazy one, but I just have to mention it now. I hope and we don't get any hate comments because of this, but Derek and Randy are the only living people of the Shaffer family who would have received large sums of money from Renee's passing because of her life insurance. And Brian's cut was supposed to be somewhere in between $20,000 and $30,000. So this theory goes that either Derek and Shaffer or one of them actually killed Brian so that they could like get more money from the life insurance. I mean, I don't think that's what happened, but you know what I'm saying. Then we have this guy in Tijuana, you know what I'm saying, laying like somewhere on the corner. You know what I'm saying, he looks really messed up. So the FBI says that this is not the guy, but from what I've gathered, no one actually found this dude because he apparently is just some homeless dude. So I don't know if that's even a possibility to find him. So yeah, and just to sum it up, I will briefly say what I think happened. I'll let you finish it off then. So I definitely believe that he exited the building and didn't die inside it. Maybe he left by jumping off the roof, or just managed to unintentionally slip out the building unseen and not captured by the CCTV somehow. Because if your theory regarding him disappearing on purpose, well, I think I'll want you to still like sort of chime in here. Do you think that if he disappeared on purpose, was he actively trying to avoid the security footage cameras? What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a smart dude. He knew he had to.
Right.
I mean, he seems like he was very focused on the appearances, and like he was feeling a lot of stress from people's perceptions.
Right.
That's what I see from it. So I think that's the best way, was just to Jimmy Hoffa it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically, I think we both agree that he left the building. Now, I have 3 possibilities after Brian leaves the building, and I have them like ranked. So I'll start off with the one that I think is the least likely. And that's pretty much your theory, you know what I'm saying? Sorry, dude, but out of the 3, I don't think he started a new life, because that's because I just don't see it, man. Like, it just doesn't seem like he would start a new life, and literally no trace of him would ever be found, you know what I'm saying? Like, he seemed like a social dude. He seemed like he had a bunch of friends, a bunch of acquaintances. He already had like invested a lot of time into like into his studies, and I don't think that it, like, he only had like a few years left. I think he's rational enough to finish that and then leave for a new life. So that's why I'm thinking that that's the least likely thing. Now the second thing that's sort of a little bit more likely, in my opinion, is the accident. Now, he could have got hit by a car, and then the person who did a hit and run sort of bagged him up in his like trunk and then disposed of him. He could have drowned in the river. He was drunk. Also, the construction site, he could have died there. Like, I'm not gonna rule that out completely, And then probably the most likely thing that I'm leaning towards is that he actually got mugged and then subsequently killed, probably because of an accident, because he was an easy target. As I've said, a preppy looking drunk guy. You probably think that this guy has some money on him. That's, you're gonna go in, you're gonna try to mug him. Now, Brian was a 6'2" guy. He was athletic and drunk. he sees a knife, he's like, I can take this guy. Like, I'm the guy. You know what I'm saying? I just got like 2 girls giving me their phone number like 20 minutes ago. Like, I'm the guy. You know what I'm saying? I can do anything. So he sees a dude with a knife. He's like, come at me, dude. And, you know, he comes at him, and, you know, Brian is left dead. So I think, and then disposed, you know, Maybe they threw him into a garbage bin or something like that. There was a statement that the family members started looking through the garbage bins, like the dumpster, like not the dumpsters, but like the massive garbage bins. And, you know, I just think that's a bad time, you know what I'm saying, for a family to be looking for their son in like garbage containers. So I think that's what happened, dude. I think that he got outside, was an easy target, got like, you know what I'm saying, mugged, accidentally killed, and that's it. Like, crime was not, you know what I'm saying, crime was happening there. It wasn't super dangerous, but it wasn't super safe. Like, it was definitely not out of the question for, you know, dudes to get robbed in that area. So no, man, that's pretty much all I have. I mean, anything to finish off this week's show, man?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to rank it, I think my issues are, because the disappearance was so complete. There's a lot of weird red flags and him kind of signaling life changes. My issues with the crime theories are that you really don't see a lot. I mean, other than like organized crime, and like, yeah, it's true that occasionally there will be like somebody that does a good job of disposing the body. I just don't see a lot of like casual crime so focused on disposing his body. I would have to say, if I had to look at like sort of an accidental death, that I actually would contradict his uncle. I don't know why his uncle is like an authority on people drowning in rivers.
Yeah.
Like is he like a rescue driver or something? I feel like anytime you're near a major river like that, I feel like that's one of the or any kind of big waterway, especially one that's flowing. That is actually maybe a good way for someone's body to potentially disappear. I mean, we've had enough people's bodies disappear under bodies of water for super long periods of time and not show up. And then the fact that you can decompose pretty quickly, I don't know. It just I once again, I think of like, I mentioned this last week, that book that the Irishman movie was based on. To make Jimmy Hoffa disappear, they put a lot of effort into it. Like, no joke. Like, this was before DNA evidence. They still they had like a whole crew of guys.
Yeah.
Prepping the scene ahead of time. They had every little detail thought out.
Yeah.
And I still think people saw him disappear and they just kept their mouths shut. Like, people saw him get into the car and they never said anything because they knew there would be a penalty. Yeah. So for this guy to disappear the way he did, yeah, I don't know, man.
In terms of Ohio having the most, Columbus having the most cameras in Ohio, I mean, that's all. The perpetrators, I will say, to contradict myself a little here, I will say, if this was a mugging gone bad, then literally the perpetrator is like the luckiest dude in the world, or girl, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're the luckiest person ever to get away with this, you know what I'm saying? Because a whole bunch of people would be thinking at that point that he didn't even left the bar, you know what I'm saying? Everyone's like focusing, oh, is he still in the bar? Oh, is the bar owners irresponsible? What happened there, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, it's a complete mystery. I'm looking forward to the comments on this episode from our audience. I know this episode has been a little all over the place this week, but that's just what happens when I have like a lot of information and I want to say everything that I have to say within like an hour and 30 minutes. So I think I managed to do that. I think I took over a little bit this week. So my apologies for everyone who didn't think that this episode was up to par from our usual stuff. But yeah, guys, we'll definitely come back next week with some other cool cases. I think we have one lined up already, and yeah, just as always, guys, if you like this episode, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and then we'll see you on the next week's episode. Stay safe and peace out.